I welcome you to Ada Derana.lk in an exclusive interview with a prominent business personality who has joined us today to speak a few words on the exact involvement with Sri Lanka. So I'll give you a rough idea as to who this is. It's none other than, of course, the Vice Chairman and the Managing Director of Mahindra & Mahindra Limited, and it's Mr. Anand Mahindra. Welcome on board. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
I hope you're enjoying Sri Lanka so far. How has the Sri Lankan experience been like?
So good that I'm not ready to go back yet, but I do need to, and I'm flying back today. But I think this is not the last you've seen of me. This is going to be the first of many, many visits again.
Lovely. That's a very interesting prospect to think about, especially after hearing that. I'm wondering as to the involvement you are thinking of, especially Mahindra & Mahindra being such a massive group with a lot of variety and diversification. What kind of involvement are you planning, especially with Sri Lanka?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the diversity and the variety of the businesses we're in. So we are planning to have all of them engage, if possible. So it's really like a Lego set where we hope all the interlocking pieces will fit together. That's what we're going to try and do. I actually came here, Yahani, 31 years ago.
All right.
This was my first business trip abroad.
Okay.
I looked at Sri Lanka as a site for manufacturing oil drilling rigs at that time, which was one of the ventures we were considering. So I had the opportunity to land in Colombo and then drive across the length of the island up to Trinco.
All right.
And it was beautiful. I got an immediate sense of the potential of the country. This is not Singapore you fly into and then there's one city and you're limited by its very circumference. I have myself made the comparison to Singapore and Sri Lanka and its potential. But its potential is even greater because this is a large country by that standard. This is not simply a city-state. So I think for a group like ours, which is very diverse, given the potential of this country, in a variety of sectors, not simply tourism, not simply financial services in a city-state, I think a group like ours can engage on a number of fronts, perhaps even in all 10 sectors that we operate in.
All right, so all 10 sectors. Now, that's a lot of confidence coming from someone of your caliber and in your position. Now, speaking of investment opportunities, now Sri Lanka is in a post-war situation. We are seeing a lot of development coming in. So, as a person who is looking at Sri Lanka for a place to invest, how does it look like? Are you happy with the progress you're seeing, and how has it driven you to come over here to Sri Lanka?
You know, I don't want to sound like somebody who's prone to irrational exuberance.
Okay.
But I think a substantial amount of exuberance is probably justified in the case of Sri Lanka. After all, this has come, as I said, after 31 years. There has been almost a 31 years hiatus of a potential that I noticed even then. What I found striking in my last 2 days of meetings and encounters with the government and with the private sector here is that there is a can-do spirit now. There is a feeling of having put history behind you, of having coped with the challenge.
That's right.
There is a great desire to put that pain well behind you and to move ahead and to live up to what is a collective sense of destiny here. Everybody knows there's a palpable buzz here that you're in for some good times.
Something good thing.
And that alchemy, that kind of feeling, that collective spirit should not be scoffed at. It's not simply abstract. Sometimes these things become wish-fulfilling. When people feel collectively that strong, when they're determined to do something, then magical things happen. Life is not always about spreadsheets and about numbers and algorithms. It's not about the data. It is about human beings. That's who we all are, isn't it? And I think there is this determination that is rare. And as a businessman, I think I've lived long enough to understand those intangibles. And to me, that is an equal opportunity to all the statistics that I see, which are impressive. The literacy level, 20 million is not a small population. You're larger than most Eastern European country populations. You're larger than Holland. You know, so in that kind of sense, there is a substantial consumer opportunity here. You have all your data, whether it's agriculture, whether it's consumer sales, and so on and so forth, infrastructure investment, 10% potential GDP. Those are hard numbers businessmen can latch onto. But as I said, what I'm really looking forward to is jumping on the bandwagon of this new spirit. I've seen it happen in India. I've seen things happen simply when people said, okay, enough is enough, we need to move, we need to get the show on the road. And I sensed the same palpable spirit here.
All right, so that was a lot of good things coming in, especially from a businessman's point of view. Now, speaking of the potential that Sri Lanka holds, I was listening to you and I was paying a lot of attention to the fact that you highlighted about human resources and us managing it in a better way. What exactly and how exactly would you stress this factor, especially when it comes to Sri Lanka and the literacy rate and human resources?
Well, I didn't actually say manage it in a better way. It wouldn't be that arrogant after 2 days. I simply mentioned that you have great strength, and the key strength in the future for any economy to excel is the human resource element. We are behind in India in the literacy rate.
All right.
Because and that's one of our demographics are both our opportunity and our challenge. Given our large population in India, for example, if we don't meet aspirations, if we don't create jobs, there's going to be a problem. And then how do you create jobs if people are not adequately educated? So 100% literacy rate has to be the goal in India. We're very far from it right now, but you're at that point already. So that, to me, was the great strength, that you have already a highly literate population. I've heard some noises about the fact that there may be skill mismatches, that you have primary education complete, but have you got people skilled and with the right or equipped with the right skills in the areas that are needed for this 10% growth? That is one of the concerns I've heard expressed. I'm not completely au fait with what that is or what the skill mismatch is, but then I smell opportunity again, because training then becomes an opportunity. How do you train people in those vocational skills that will be required?
Would be another area for you as well.
Exactly. Right. Well, we do that more as CSR, as corporate social responsibility. Education is the prime area where the Mahindra Group gives back to society. We have decided to focus our philanthropy, our corporate philanthropy, on education. And we know education is a huge business opportunity, but we are very reluctant to turn it into a business opportunity. It's like turning your temple or church into an area of profit. We don't do that. Education is where we give back. So even in training, we have created something called the Mahindra Pride Schools, which are vocational training centers where we just give short courses to people in English, service skills, technical skills, and then make them recruitable. That could be one of the areas in which we give back to Sri Lanka. I spoke to some government people about that yesterday, and they were quite interested in our being able to transplant some of those pride schools here into Sri Lanka.
Great. Now, speaking to the government officials, I was actually following a Twitter blog which claimed that you had met the president himself and even visited the parliament. So, apart from, of course, being impressed by Shefri Baba's parliament, I believe we would like to hear a little bit as to what the discussions were all about and how the government is reacting to your presence here and how they are actually seeing it.
Well, I started my day with the BOI and Minister Amunagama, met also Minister Basil Rajapaksa, and then we met the President. So it was a full day and quite a spectrum of meetings. All of them impressive, all of them very positive, very aligned. That's an interesting thing. When business people travel sometimes and you have a slew of meetings, you always watch to see how aligned the statements are. Is there consistency? Is there commonality of vision? Is there a kind of uniformity of strategic intent and energy? And there was a high level of alignment and all. That's a very positive sign. That all of them were equally motivated, equally aligned to a mission that was consistent. So that impressed me a lot. And every one of the meetings resulted in some very practical discussions on real opportunities. Not, as I said, about expressions of love and brotherhood and, walking into the sunset together forever. We were talking about real opportunities which could be exploited by our group. So that was very encouraging.
Great. So hopefully we'll be seeing lots of investment by your company here. Now, moving from that to a little bit of an informal touch. Now, we were doing a little bit of research as to what kind of person you are, and we followed up some things, especially your interest in photography. So I don't think you've been seeing Sri Lanka that much. So for a person who has quite an eye for things like that, has Sri Lanka caught your eye in that area?
Well, more than photography, I suppose what that vast beast called the internet tells you about me is that my undergraduate degree was in filmmaking.
Filming, that's right.
So certainly did not get time to lug around a camera with me yesterday here. And in any case, I have abdicated that interest in filmmaking to my daughter, who
that's
plans
nice.
to be a filmmaker. So I think she sees me more as a producer signing the check for her
Okay.
production. So I won't be behind the camera anytime soon. But I also spent 2 years in architecture. And I would have been a failed architect today had my architectural college in Mumbai not gone on strike, which is why I went and switched to filmmaking. So, but that interest in architecture still abides. And one of my secret goals was to see more of Jeffrey Bauer's structures. Didn't get much time, but my wife has threatened that she will only come here next time if I have leisure time, and we will probably go on a Bauer pilgrimage, if you will, and look at more of his structures here.
Yes, we're definitely looking forward to seeing more of you here in Sri Lanka. And on that same note, finally, before we say goodbye and, of course, wish you the very best, Sri Lanka and Mahindra Limited, what exactly do you see together in the future?
As I said, and I'm sorry if it sounds repetitive, but I hope engaging on a number of fronts, engaging across many of our sectors, and therefore Mahindra benefiting enormously from the inevitable 10% growth that I see happening in Sri Lanka. But also I hope at the end of a period of time being seen as having contributed to that goal of high and rapid growth being realized here. I hope we can be seen as people who played some role in it as well.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Great.